Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. I need you guys to smash that like button. If you don't know me, I'm Game from BusyWorksBeats.com. We trained over 1 million producers around the world. Some have gone to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Polo G, Trippie Redd, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Glorilla. We have 3 confirmed Grammy winners. We have multi-platinum plaque winning producers. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys the 5 mistakes I see in your mixes, and it's really simple how to clean up your mix. So firstly, it is a sound selection issue, but outside of sound selection, let's talk about how to clean up a mix. So here's a West Coast beat we made during the live stream. So the first flaw is when a track is just too wide. And the reason is, if you listen to this keyboard, the sound was already, if I take off these effects, the sound itself was already really stereoized. So if you add more stereo effects to an already stereoized sound, you're gonna get an overly wide sound. So sometimes it's more prudent to pull your stereo sounds a little more narrow. You could do this in FL Studio with this View Extra Volume and Stereo Properties button here. And you'll see this stuff. Make sure your mixer is big enough. At the very bottom, you'll see this little knob here. This says Stereo Separation. We're gonna turn this to the right to make it more narrow. So now the piano is not eating up the entire stereo field. So now when we make stuff wider, that sound won't eat up all the space on the side. We can also do the same thing with this E piano. Now this song does need a stereo width to it to hear that broom broom type of effect, but sometimes your song sounds better more narrow. So what we're gonna do is turn up the crosstalk, and this will change the phasing. So it pulls it more narrow. And you almost get more of a 90s vibe by pulling something narrow. So I think one of the biggest mistakes I see with beginners is they try to overly widen stuff, and overly widen stuff is basically like everybody in a room trying to be loud. You can't hear the loudness anymore if everybody in the room is loud. So it becomes quiet again. So the same thing with stereo width. If everything's on the stereo side, nothing's really wide. It's just pushed to the side. So again, we can open this up. This is a specific plugin called the BusyWorks Beats Stereo Width plugin. We have a width knob here, but even pulling this more narrow might be the solution sometimes for your mix, because you can feel the dynamics a little bit better. If you have a lot of percussion and moving elements that go left to right, like boom, boom, like stuff like that, then you might want to widen up your track. It's no right or wrong way. It's just I've seen beginners tend to overly widen stuff. The next thing is keeping too much energy on the side image around about 300 hertz. So let's open up the BusyWorks Beats EQ2. And what we're going to do is right click around 300. The node's already made for you guys, so you don't have to guess. Just right click. We're going to go to processing mode, side mode, and we're going to turn this up to exaggerate the sound on the side. The side image is the difference between your left and your right ear. That's called the side. So you hear this like, not mud, but you just hear this ambiguous like, it's like almost like you're in a small room. So unless you want to create like a proximity effect where it feels like something's in a small room, we're gonna turn this down. And it's not an all the time thing, it just depends on you guys' mixes. This creates clarity. Here's before. Here's after. So simply just handling that frequency around 300 hertz on the side image cleans up a lot of bad reverbs, cleans up a lot of poorly managed side vocals, poorly managed stereo sounds that may be in your mix. Okay, so that's usually where the area needs to be cleaned up, and most people don't check for that area. So the next thing is just too much bass. So I'm going to exaggerate with this EQ. Now this EQ is special because you could push it really aggressively and it still has a good sound. So we're just going to push this 60 hertz up. We're at about 4 dB and it's not too much bass, so we can push this further. Now it's one sound in particular for this mix. It's called I think it's called buzz kick. So this is the one kick that I'm blending in this other kick. If I turn this off, this kick has a boom boom, it has a room sound to it. So that gets exaggerated when we start boosting these lows, because now this kick sample, we're hearing that room. So if I turn this off, it's just like a flat tone. If I turn it on, it enhances it a little bit. So let's go to the kick itself and adjust this kick itself. Now, I guess this is like a sub point here, is a lot of beginners, they'll address every sound all at once, or they'll do the extreme, which is to address each sound by itself. So there's two extremes. There's just the people who just try to slap a plug-in chain on the mix bus and call it a day. That's fine though. I'm not saying that's wrong. And then there's the people who overly get into minutia by going sound to sound and try to EQ everything per sound. I just personally think if you're doing that much work, then you didn't pick the right sounds, personally speaking. The only time you're going to be going to sounds in particular is when there's a situation like this where we have to take out the room reverb of the kick or something like that. You're rarely going to the sound itself to mix the sound itself. And that's just a general rule of thumb. I'm not giving you guys a hard rule. So let's right click here. Let's switch this to side processing and turn up so we can hear that room in the kick. And let's widen this. So that's where the reverb lives, is on the side. So let's turn that down because we don't need it. And now the kick is more straightforward. We don't have that boom boom anymore from the reverb. Okay, so that's something that you would have to address on a sound level. And now we can boost the lows without it crushing the mix. Now what I've added here on this EQ2 is more than just turning stuff up and down. We could actually add drive, and this is going to add harmonics to the sound to help them fill out the mix. So another, I guess, flaw beginners tend to make on top of adding too much bass, which is, you know, when they're boosting 20 hertz, 40 hertz, going crazy. But I just showed you how we can boost too much, but it sounds good. It just depends on your tool at hand, I guess. All right, so now it's up the drive knob. So another flaw I see with beginners is their stuff is not loud enough, like it's way too quiet. And an easy way to kind of measure if your stuff is loud enough is it hitting near zero. If it's hitting anywhere not near zero, it's probably too quiet. So as I turn up the drive knob here, see the track is becoming more dynamic. Here's another sub point, is that a lot of beginner tracks aren't dynamic enough. Dynamic is when you have the pointy parts higher than the flat sustained parts. And I know I'm generalizing here, but the reason we like those West Coast beats is because you felt the emptiness. They wouldn't even push their songs this loud. We're really pushing this song. So I could turn this down a good 7 dB. And it still knocks. It's because we're keeping the dynamics in the mix. Make it more narrow. See how we can feel the dynamics a little bit more. So here's some advanced tips. Whenever you make your track more narrow or your elements more narrow, your brain can perceive the movement easier. With stereo sound, because everything's going left, right, you know, left 20%, right 20%, 23%, it's so scattered, it's hard to tell the movement of a sound. But when you pull everything more narrow, our brain doesn't have to focus on 1,000 positions, and it can feel the dynamic a little bit more. So sometimes if you guys want to make your tracks more dynamic, pull it mono or pull the stuff more narrow. Now here I'm using what's called parallel compression. I could turn it all the way up, but it's a little aggressive. So if you struggle to hear compression, a great way to hear it is to pull your stuff more narrow or even mono, because then you can hear the movements. Now we're gonna pull the mix level back. So we're blending that effect in. Now another tip for dynamics is, instead of doing 2 to 1, you know, 1.2 to 1, 4 to 1 ratio, do 0.8 to 1 or 0.9 to 1. So we're actually doing expansion here. So I'm going to add this expansion to this sound. And now we're going to not take away volume. We're actually going to add volume. And basically we're making the pointy parts more pointy. That's what we're doing. Now the lower the ratio, like 0.7, it will turn up the sound even more. So you got to be careful going into the 0.1, 0.6 area, or the point, because see how we're adding a lot of dB in that case. You got to be really careful with this. Now I also have a transient feature in this specific unit called the stereo width plugin. So you could actually add more transient information after all of the signal, or you could do it before the signal so it gets crunchy. Let's do it after the signal. So I can show you guys how even with one EQ, we can get a decent sound, even just with this one EQ. So we're hitting above 0. That's the only thing about the EQ. It doesn't have that cap to it. Now let's add that stereo width. And we're adding harmonics using clipping and saturation to make the sound a little more full. And we're using a limiter to make sure we're not going past 0. So if I turn this whole chain off, here's before. I think we're even clipping before, but it doesn't sound loud at all. Here's after. Now what happens if we make our pianos back wide again? Let's see if they're too wide. So this harmonic exciter is very important to this specific sound. Let's dial it back for a little more clarity. So here's before. See how the song doesn't feel dynamic at all because there's no noticeable difference between the tall sounds and the sustained sounds. And after we take care of the transient, now we can really feel All right, so these principles apply to every mix, and I want to thank you guys for listening in. If you want to learn how to make beats like the pros, go to busyworksbeats.com/premium. We have a 14-day free trial to get you guys started. Peace out, guys.